Welcome back to the Unstuck Movement. Today, this is the Unstuck Business, Tools and Testimonies for Business Breakthrough. I have the incredible, the powerful Steve Ramona with us on the platform today. Steve, we're going to dive into so much about how to help people elevate their networking. But first, before we jump into all that, I just want to know a simple question. Why should you be serving before you're selling?
Besides making more income and growing, it's a great way to build relationships. Relationships leads to more people. I call us, all of us, whoever's listening, and me and you, Rob, we're in the people asset business, meaning we need like assets in financial, compounding interest, compounding, same way with people. We need not just people. You can't just go to a church and grab people and bring them. Quality people that you've built a relationship that bring value to you, but also you bring value to them.
Mm-hmm. Very, very true. And I want to know, what does that practically look like? And before we dive into that, I just want to shout out everybody. Thank you for being a part of this platform, the Unstuck Business, Tools and Testimonies for Business Breakthrough, brought to you by the Connected Leaders Academy. Check out connectedleadersacademy.com. So Steve Ramona, the host of the Pantheon Alliance Mastermind, has a current membership of 45 million and billionaires. Founder of the #1 ranked small business marketing podcast with thousands of followers. He is a super connector to connect people, to build partnerships and joint ventures. He discovered networking was the real deal at a very young age. Also, Steve is on a mission to teach the world how to network correctly using his #1 ranked podcast, Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. So knowing that you're an expert in this field, Steve, what does it practically look like to be serving before you're selling? Because we hear that a lot. You hear about, being a servant leader, being of service. But for you, what does that practically look like in your life?
People assets, let's talk about that. How would you like to get 3 to 5 referrals, maybe 10 referrals a day? I'm going forward first because that's what I'm getting. But what's happened over the last year and a half, and really last 10 years, is building relationships with people I meet. What does that look like? When you meet people, my mindset right away, and with you, Rob, doing this show, how can I bring value to the show, maybe after the show? If you're thinking that way and not thinking transactional, tough word. So I always say be transformational, not transactional. How do you transform somebody? It could be an introduction. It could be a tip on their LinkedIn. It could be, hey, I love your background. By the way, I love that on the air. I'm going to borrow that. That's pretty cool having that in your background. Thanks. It's things like that that will change your relationship. And I look at it this way. We're thinking of a 6, 7, 8-year-old at Christmas time. What do? We get up at 6 a.m., earliest time we ever get up as a young kid, and we run to the tree. We open the presents up. Every time I'm bringing value, I receive gifts every day, and it changes the universe. It's not something that's transactional where I jump on your show and you're going to, Zelle me $100. No, I'm going to bring great value to your audience, but my universe will change. How, when, or where, we don't know, but I've been through it the last year and a half, and it will do a lot of changes for the good.
Yeah, it's really good, isn't it? Like you're not sure how, when, or where, but it's going to happen. And how couldn't? I mean, it's just like the intentionality. That's what I hear from you saying is like you're very intentional in what you're doing, and intentional when you meet people and you have conversations with them, not just to like get something from them or not just to like get through the conversation to get out of it, but it's like, how am I going to help this person get something that they didn't have before? And always having in the back of your head, and I'm a member of BNI. We were talking about Ivan Meisner a few minutes ago before we started. It's like that giver's gain mindset. When I'm going in to meet somebody, like, who do I know that this person could really benefit from knowing, and then connecting them together and taking that step to actually bridge that gap, get approval from each person. Hey, you two need to meet. You two need to connect. This is going to be a great relationship. That intentionality. Where did that come from for you? Did that start back when you were a kid? What instilled that in you?
Yeah, it did. At 18, I just finished high school, going to play community college football. In summertime, 18-year-old kid, you want to make money, go to the beach, maybe go on a date, go out with your buddies. So my family started a health club, and my cousin asked me, hey, come work the front desk. And it was life-changing for me, because think about this, audience. I'm sitting in front of this desk checking people in. 1, 2, 3 times a week I'm seeing these people, and they're millionaires. Some of these people are driving Porsches. This is back in 78, 79, Porsches and Mercedes I see driving in and out. But what happens when I saw them every day, or, once or couple times a week, I started building relationships. They'd take me to lunch. They'd give me a tip. They'd say, hey, Steve, how was your vacation? Hey, go here next. This is a great place. Like you're walking Expedia, but it was with business. In one of the stories, Tony, this little Italian guy, used to call me, hey, kid, how you doing, kid? I'm doing great. So one day he walked in and we were talking. He throws me this book, The Wealthy Barber. It's still out there if you're interested. Great book. It's about 50, 60 pages long. He said, hey, kid, read that. I'm coming back next week. I'm going to ask you if you read it or not. So I did read it. He comes back and he asks, and he's a financial advisor. So this is what he did for a living. I said, you're telling me, Tony, from the book, take 10% of my income. And back then was $5, $4 minimum wage, a lot of money. But I said, okay, I'm starting this week with my check and taking 10%. What was crazy is 10 years later, I didn't look at it because he said, stay away from that account. He had $68,000 in that account as a 28-year-old. I thought I won the lottery. Back then in 1985, 89, whatever it was, I mean, it's still a lot of money, but for a 28-year-old just starting his career was huge. So I reached out to him. I said, Tony, he had retired by then. I said, hey, look at me. He goes, kid, I'm so glad you listened to me. I said, can I send you $1,000? I mean, that was your business. He goes, no. What you did is you changed my universe. I said, what do you mean? He goes, because you took my advice as I served you. I'm sure somebody wealthy or somebody came to my life or something came to my life because I did the servant and you followed through with it. You just keep going and serving yourself. From then on, every person I met. Now, I had done that at the health club because I enjoy people. I was broadcasting. I used to walk around the gym and I met thousands of people. People would tease me. Hey, Steve, if you got married, you'd have to rent the Oakland Coliseum where the Oakland A's play. I don't know why they picked that stadium. Because you know so many people. I started building that network way back then. And here's the power of it, Rob. And audience, this is such a big thing. Every opportunity that came, I brought that network with me. Started a restaurant with my buddy. We blew up as the #1 restaurant in 6 weeks because I went to those 10,000 people and said, hey, if you're local, come to my restaurant and check it out. We were packed out the door because they would come want to see me because I built a relationship. I had fun with them. It was always something good. Then I started a recycling company, my own, brick and mortar. Brought that network from the restaurant, brought that network from the health club because I was still building relationships. And I took off. I was one of the top companies in Northern California, making more money than I can imagine. And you can see the moral of the story is people go, oh, you got a network, but what do I do with it? That's one of the many things you can do with your network.
So, and this, I'm always curious about this. Somebody who's an entrepreneur and transitions from career to career. This is just a personal question. Why did you end up in recycling? How did that end up happening?
Went out to buy some computer stuff because I'm a computer geek. I built a computer in 78. Always thought money be made with it. And look at it now. I never jumped out like Steve Jobs did, even though he lived down the street. And this guy was like, hey, I said, where do you get this equipment? And again, it's the networking, asking questions, building relationship. He goes, oh, I recycle electronics. Well, tell me more about it. So I went back, did some research, and went, this is a profitable business. So I went back and partnered up with, say, let's partner up. Do you need help? And he eventually left after 6 months and I owned it by myself. But it was just, again, meeting people. Again, I'm going to go back to the people asset business. If I never would have met him, I never would have done that, never would have made the money I did. Again, the power of the network and people.
Yeah. And when you meet so many people, so many opportunities pop up. And I've experienced this myself, like where opportunities will come at you. And if you don't have the right discernment, it can be hard to decide which is the right direction to go. How have you been able to discern which direction to take yourself in over the years? Because I'm sure you've had so many opportunities pop up and different people are bringing things to you. How do you decide?
Feelings. Does it feel right? A little bit of research, talk to people, get recommendations. I mean, I used to be hit on crypto 2018 to 2020, everybody did. I enjoyed my crypto. And I did some I did okay, and some I didn't do okay. I always thought when I make that decision, though, Rob, I call this an opportunity door. What do doors do, audience? They open and they close. You walk through the door, that opportunity, oh no, it's not working. You walk back out. Maybe you've lost money, but you get out. But if you never walk through that opportunity door, would I have had the recycling business? Would I have my podcast, which is, growing big? Again, don't be afraid of that door because it does open. It doesn't lock behind you. It's always moving. And that's what I always look at. My dad taught me that. He said, if there's an opportunity there, take a peek. do some good research, talk to enough people. But Warren Buffett, what, 40 businesses failed for him? I don't know the number, but I'd love to be Warren Buffett right now.
Yeah, it turned out pretty well. Well, failing
Yes.
forward, right? Just
There you go.
being able to know that you've got to keep moving forward. And that was just another lesson. That was another lesson and a notch in the tool belt that's going to get you to where you need to be, to where you're supposed to be. If somebody's struggling to build quality relationships, because I know this is a struggle for a lot of people, a lot of business owners, like building quality relationships with people, where do you see people making the most mistakes? Where do they mess up when it's in the world of networking? How are they doing it wrong?
Great question. It's a great host, guys. You're listening to a great guy, because that's a really good question to ask. I mentor business owners, especially entrepreneurs. One of the first things I tell them that I learned, meet 10 to 15 new people every week. You do that, you meet 10 people this week, they give you 5 referrals. You met 15 new people. Next week, you meet 10 new people, they give you 10 referrals. That's 20, that's 45 people. The next week, it's 10, 15, that's 60 people. By the end of the month, you've met 100, 200 new people. And I put this in play in January 2020, right before the pandemic. I'm part owner of a digital business card, and I was selling them. So I jumped on like 15 virtual meetings every week. And my whole goal was meeting new people to introduce them what I'm doing, but building that relationship first. By 6 weeks, I met 500 new people. I was the top sales guy with the company and became an owner after that because I was doing so well.
So when you're meeting 10 to 15 new people is that a weekly or a daily basis?
Weekly,
10 to 15 new people on a weekly basis. Where are you normally meeting them? It's just asking for referrals and getting connections. Are you normally meeting them in person? Now we're living in the world of Zoom. Are you meeting them on Zoom? Yeah. It's a mixture of both. What does it usually look like for you?
I'm going to give you the secret sauce, $1 million tip. There's a number of ways to do it. Virtual networking groups are good. Be smart about it, because what I've learned is, and nothing wrong with them. I don't work with them. I used to run 6 of them, but you'd see the same people all the time. Well, if you're meeting Joe every week, that's not a new person. He already knows what you're doing. So a couple of ways. Go through your contact list. Go through. You got 1,000 people. That's the average I've found over hundreds of entrepreneurs I've met. And reach out to 300 of them, 100 of them. Hey, I'm Steve. I launched a podcast. I'd love to have you as a guest. Can I meet with you? Or became an insurance agent. Hey, can I sit down and get to know you? I want to tell you what I'm doing. I want to learn what you're doing. You take 100 people, that's 10 weeks of people you just set up just on your contact list. And here's a tip we give them. Go to your calendar on Google. There's 9 dots on the right. You'll figure it. Click on contacts. Click other contacts. I had 4,500 people in my contact list. That's why my podcast is growing, because I reached out to all of them on my podcast. It's super simple, and there's more we can do, but that's some of the easy steps you can do.
Yeah. And podcasting, and I'm leading people through starting a podcast. I'm like, listen, the biggest thing you're going to get from this is the amazing connections you're going to make and the amazing conversations you get to have, and nobody's interrupting you. There's nothing getting in the way of this conversation because it's being recorded or it's live, right? So you're there in the moment with that person, and you're going to be blown away by the people you come in contact with. Like today, an amazing networker like you's got a top 1% podcast. It's incredible that we're on here chatting together and we get to connect, man. So I really want to say thank you for that. And I value that and appreciate that immensely. But that advice is so good, because podcasting can be seen as something that's just entertainment. And it is entertaining. It is fun. But man, there's so much growth behind it. And I don't think that growth, personal growth and network growth, business growth gets talked about enough when it comes to podcasting. When did you launch your podcast, and how have you seen your business grow as you launched it?
I was hoping you'd ask this question, because so I started October 2022. Met Josh Tapp, who's now my business partner. I had a top 5 at one time. I think he's now top 250 in the world podcast, but he knows everything about a podcast. Followed his advice. I just started recording. As of today, I'm at 387 shows in a year and a half.
Wow.
People go,
so how many are you doing
that's,
a week?
I do 5 to 10 a week. I was doing 15 a week at one time. Had to cut it back because, of course, we need to make money too.
And how
What
long are
I've
you doing? How long are your episodes?
25 minutes, 20,
Okay.
25 minutes. So they're short. I take an hour, and I'll explain why I do that. But what I've seen last year, Rob, was my best year financially compared to the last 10 years combined.
Wow.
Because of the podcast. It's not what people think like, oh, he's got sponsors like Joe Rogan. I have a sponsor, but it doesn't, it makes me money, pays for my podcast. But what I've done is built relationships with millionaires and billionaires. Dr. Ivan Meisner wants him to talk about his message. He wouldn't jump on my podcast. I'm not going to speak for you, Rob. Probably, but it doesn't matter. He wouldn't have jumped on my podcast or jumped and talked to me on a one-on-one unless I had a podcast. I've had NFL retired athletes. I'm going to have a NFL cheerleader, top cheerleader for Dallas Cowboys. Bob Berg, the go-giver, his partner Jeff, who wrote hundreds of millions of books, and many more people that really I leverage partnerships. So I have 30 partnerships that pay. I just got $250 sent to me today. I don't know where it came from. Probably for one of the partnerships and sometimes an affiliate program. Sometimes I put two companies together and they pay me thousands of dollars. So that's my business model. But the hub of this whole thing is the podcast because it makes me a super connector. And you said in a great way how a podcast is, you're doing this and this. I call it your business one-on-one that you're doing with everybody. Because guess what? You get to promote that to tens of thousands of people. So what's going to happen to your guest? I get done and go, Rob, that was an incredible podcast. Yeah, Steve. Oh my God, it's great. And here, let me give you a referral here. I've got a little tip here to help you with some of these things. What's the next question? An audience, this is really important. Steve, how can I help you? How can I support you? Well, I love what you're doing. I'd love to bring your business through my network. Do you have an affiliate program? Do you have a referral program? I do. Got this guy, Chad, I work with. He's unbelievable, builds an affiliate program for people that want affiliates. He just sent me a $50 Amazon gift card. And thank you, Chad, online for just all the referrals I gave him. It's $50. But what's the power of that? It's so much fun because it's a win. I bring you a client, Rob. Rob, you pay me. The client's happy, you're happy, and I'm happy. It's the triple win that rarely happens in business, but everybody's winning. So the podcast is, and I got sponsors and that helps. And you've got a sponsor. That's kind of the side gig. The main gig is using that to build your network. And maybe it's for clients. Maybe you meet Ivan Meisner and he's got, I got 5 clients for you. I got 5 people that would be good for me, would be guests. And now I'm building a network of incredible guests, as I was telling you earlier.
Yeah, it is really, really an unsung thing. And I hear you're talking about it, right? But I don't hear. This is why I want to talk about it more, and I've been talking about it more. Is this concept of podcasting? These nooks and crannies of it don't get talked about enough. Like the long game of it, the connections that are being made, and people think like, well, how am I going to make money off of this? Well, if you're doing it the right way and you're building connections and you're connecting people, and you said about the win-wins, right? Podcasting is amazing because your audience is winning, my audience is winning, you and I are winning by connecting. There's so many people involved who are going to get benefit from this, and when you start to look at it from that perspective, it's like, holy cow, I got to do this every day. I need to do this all the time because number one, I know you feel this way. I know I definitely feel this way. It's so much fun, and it's so much fun to have these conversations, but the benefits that come out of it and the growth that comes out of it is incredible. Plus the personal growth that comes from it. Have you found yourself personally growing as a human being from podcasting?
Oh my God, yes, because I used to talk a lot. I used to thought I had to know it all. I was terrible. I was a great person in the serving, but if somebody, said something, I thought I had to know everything to keep that servant label. I don't like labels, but title. And I realized with the podcasting, shut up. And this is what I tell people when I mentor them, shut up and listen. People go, well, shut up. I'm listening, aren't I? I said, think about your Zoom rooms you've been on with multiple people. Their screen goes black or they turn away from the screen. Are they really listening to the person talking? Probably not. Now, there's sometimes people go black, somebody come in the room, they're eating lunch and they're listening, but got to shut up and listen. If you don't do that in a podcast, as you know, Rob, it's not a very good podcast because they don't want to hear the host. You brought on this expert or somebody with a great story that you want to inspire, motivate, and educate your guest. So that's one of the biggest things I've learned.
Yeah, it is. It's huge. And if you want to just talk, then you can have your own show by yourself if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
Don't bring somebody else on and ear beat them while they're a guest in your show, right?
Yeah, and let me add, that's a great point, Rob. That's such a great point. You can do that, but the model I'm showing you doesn't work. You need to be interviewing somebody. Now, if you're not a fan of a podcast, do a LinkedIn Live. Bring these really powerful, successful, whatever you're looking for person, because everybody wants to talk about themselves. They have a message, a mission, a philanthropic mission to talk about. That's why I say these podcasts or a live work. I love podcasts like you do. Not that doing a podcast where you're solo and educating people, that's good too, because it brings your thought leader expertise to the forefront. But God, when you interview people, it's the next level.
Yeah, it really is. So we have to jump into the sponsor real quick, the Connected Leaders Academy. When we come back in 60 seconds, you mentioned about a few minutes ago, you mentioned about partnerships, and I was curious about that. So how have you formed partnerships? How did you start that process off? I'd love to dive into some of that, plus some information about your mastermind also and how that came about. We'll talk about that in 60 seconds.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world, globally, all across the country, high performers, titans of industry. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, this is where you want to be. Join the Connected Leaders Academy today. We are scaling massively. We want to welcome you in. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
So, Steve, partnerships, when it comes to this area of business, how did you start to form partnerships, and what advice do you give to somebody who wants to make that a part of their business structure?
This is the second part, what I learned from a podcast. Ask. ASK. I'm going to say it again. Ask. An audience, what's the worst thing that can happen if I ask? We go back to Dr. Ivan Meisner. If I ask him to be a podcast guest and he says no, what's happened? Nothing. Next. I'll just find another guest because there's millions of people out there. Same thing with partnerships, especially when you bring value to somebody and you serve them, they're going to want to be your partner. So I ask, and a perfect example is Kathy's got this incredible program. She charges $250,000 a year coaching program with neuroscience. It's unbelievable. But we had such a great time in our meeting. We haven't even done our podcast yet. She reached out and I said, do you happen to have an affiliate program? She, absolutely. So I got an email the next day and she's going to give me more money because of the value I brought her. I asked, I gave her value. I make more money if I bring her a referral that signs up. So here's a tip about these partnerships. If you need money right now, you haven't brought a client in, or you're struggling, or you need to pay off a car, whatever it may be, that circumstance, go through your network again, contact list. That's your Bible, man. I mean, I love the Bible. I'm faith, but this is your second Bible. Those are people you've met and build relationships already. And go through and go, oh, there's Tony Smith. Oh, he's a coach. He's a mindset coach. Hey, Tony, do you happen to have an affiliate program? Oh, I do. You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to highlight a couple times a month through my network what you do. And I'm going to send emails out. Let's set up an affiliate program, referral program, whatever you want to call it. And I'll do that. And I do that weekly, 2 hours a week, sometimes 3. I'll go through my network. Hey, have you seen this AI tool for LinkedIn? I just did 3 this morning. You need to check it out. Now, some pay me $50 to $100. Some pay me $10, $15, $20,000. Those occur less, less of your network, but you make $10,000 on one. So I made $25,000 on 2 emails about 8 weeks ago. It's powerful, putting 2 businesses together. And the thank was, hey, I'm going to give you a percentage of this deal. 2 emails, put 2 people together.
Right. Make that connection. A sale happens, and then you get that affiliate, the affiliate pay. That's an incredible way of going about that.
I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Also building that relationship. It wasn't like, here's 2 emails. I don't know these people very well. Connect. No, they knew when it's coming from me. Steve's legit. He's authentic. He cares. He's got that servant's heart. That's the power of this servant heart thing. It's what the impression you leave with somebody. I always mess up the Maya Angelou quote, but people probably know what it is. That's what this is.
Which quote is that?
Something that not what they think about you. I should look how they remember you by, it's you make them laugh, you make them joke, you make them cry, but it's what they remember you by.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry for putting you on the spot there. After you said you didn't remember it, I brought it up. But I was curious which one you meant.
Yeah, no, the audience, look it up. This is the thing about Beautiful Live podcast. It's authentic. We don't have an answer. But you just look her up and you'll see it, because I get emails every day from people. Hey, you got to meet Steve. Oh, my God, he's connected. He's going to really help you. What a great introduction. Instead of, hey, I met Steve about 6 months ago. You need to check him out. Quite a bit different.
The best way I love connecting people is through either Facebook or LinkedIn voice notes, right? So I'll bring 2 people into a private chat and then send a voice note along with a little bit of text. But you can really get the point across about how much you value somebody when your voice is on there and they can hear you talking about the person. I do video introductions. I have a service I use. It's blowing people away, because what they see and hear is my reaction. Oh my God, you got to meet Rob. He's a rock star. His podcast is a bomb. His service is the best you'd want to see. I was on his podcast. And then, hey, Tony Smith. Hey, Rob, Tony's a rock star. He's a business coach, and he's got #1 clients. He was on Forbes. You guys need to connect. There's such a great synergy there. And then I stop. That kind of introduction, people are going to go, well, they're going to walk in that one-on-one a little different than, hey, Rob, meet Tony. Tony, meet Rob. Good luck. Yeah, throw you to the wolves.
Yeah.
What is the video service called?
Dub Video. And I have a link for people if they're interested. Again, one of my partners. And what's really cool about it is there's call to actions down below. It has my calendar below. It's got my podcast. So people can click on it as they're being introduced to learn more about me as I introduce them. And it's subtle. It's not in their face, but somebody wants to click on it, they can do that if they want.
Very cool. That's DUB, Dub Video.
2 B's, DUBB.
DUBB. Awesome. I'm going to check that out. Going back to earlier in this episode, and you were talking about meeting 10 to 15 new people every single week. And then you've got to be able to remember all these people, right? And how do you log everybody that you meet, right? So what do you have a CRM that you go through to connect everybody together, to keep everybody on file? What do you do to log all the connections that you're making?
And a CRM is what I use, high level. It's not for everybody. It's a higher end. But if you don't want to pay for a CRM, and by the way, Friday CRM I think it's from Google, is for Google Calendar. It's free. So if you want a CRM that's free, there's Friday CRM. Again, CM, Servant's Heart, Brigand's Tips. And I point that out not to me, but this is what I'm always thinking of ways to bring in value. Or use a spreadsheet, Google Sheets or Google Excel, and put their name, date you met them. Hey, we talked about being a guest on Steve's podcast. Boom. Date, name, date, it's super simple as that. And if you're going to miss some, it's fine, because here's what you can do for follow-up. Go back to your calendar. 4 months. Oh, yeah, I was on Rob's podcast. I got to follow up with Rob. Oh, I was in Tony. I remember when we talked about partnerships. I got to follow up with him. Oh, I introduced this guy. I got to follow up with him. So you should never, and by the way, a follow-up is part of that 10 or 15. Because audience, think about this. What happens in 2 or 3 months? Well, let's use you as an example, Rob. You've met a number of people on your podcast. I come back, we reconnect in 2 months, go, Steve, I got the greatest guest for you. Oh my God, this guy. He was on my podcast 4 weeks ago. Or, hey, I just met this guy 2 weeks ago. I think he wants to be part of the alliance. Whatever that may be. So follow-ups are included with that, not just new people, because new information always comes about.
That's a good way of looking at that too, right? Think about that. The follow-up is counted in that 10 to 15 people per week. So you're lengthening, strengthening, building that relationship deeper, which is more important than just individually meeting one person a day for years on end, right? Much better to be able to follow up, build a deeper relationship, and have that bond. And that leads into like the mastermind concept, right? So in the world of masterminds, this is something I think that everybody should be a part of. And if you can, run your own mastermind also. How did you end up in the world of masterminds? Where did that begin for you, and how has that ended up now?
Well, Josh, who I mentioned earlier, Josh Tapp has the mastermind, taught me the podcasting. And what's interesting with coaching, we had 20 or 30 people there that followed some of his advice. I followed it to the T, and my podcast blew up. So he came to me and realized the network I have. He's 32, 33. Sorry, Josh, if I get your wrong age. I'm 62. So he's 30 years difference. But it doesn't
You do
matter.
not look like you're 62. You're a very youthful 62.
God bless you. I feel that way. I feel very youthful for that. Thank you. And so he asked, hey, I'd like to be your business partner, partner up with you. Let's work together. I said, absolutely. I've been waiting for you to ask. And what's interesting, when you bring value to people, and this guy sold businesses, bought businesses, he knows billionaires, all kinds of incredible, wonderful, highly successful people, is the next week we met. And I will never forget this. I tell him this all the time. He goes, Steve, I was surprised you said yes. I'm like, Josh, why would you say that? He goes, because your network's huge and you got to be very particular with your network, which I do, because you don't want a bad apple in that bushel to affect that. So we started the alliance. He started it. I've come in, co-host. I'm hosting today, as a matter of fact, and we're building more masterminds. And the power of it is we do this thing called the hot seat, where the person talks about what they do and then gives us personas or buckets of people they're looking for. It might be a marketing agency. They're looking for trades, plumbers, roofers, that etc. to work with. So what we do right there with a Google Sheet and live, we go and we type in the Google Sheet, here's a referral here, and we send the referral right there. This is a little controversial, but I'm going to say it anyways. A lot of times, and I've experienced this in virtual networking groups, it's not done there. What happens 2 or 3 days later, it's forgotten and the referral's not sent. So we make it proactive. And we've got guys building these events. They're making thousands of dollars and they're serving and educating these people when they do these events. So we take these very successful, wealthy people and put them together to build partnerships, joint ventures, events, workshops. But by the way, successful people like that have a large network. So you bring 2 people with 10,000 in their network, now you get 20,000 working together, and we bring them all together. It's millions of people. We put an offer out there. People buy it. It's going to be millions of dollars made and income as we help people. So, and then education, each person gets a chance for 20, 30 minutes to educate us on something. Last week it was agencies and about fractionals. And I learned a lot about that. So it's the education, but what we talk about is taking thought leaders and experts to change the world by doing business, not talking business. So if you're in a group that's doing this all the time, and I mean that, just talking, hey, I do this, hey, next thing, do this, or Rob, I got this guy, let's set it up, let's jump on a one-on-one and make it proactive in the group. Okay, how many one-on-ones do we have set up? Okay, 3, great. All right, let's track that. Kind of like what BNI does, is kind of similar to that. So that's the power of that, I believe.
Yeah, I was going to say that is like the benefits of BNI, is that's baked into the system, that you have to be able to give those referrals and build those relationships. But that's really good, man, because so many times, saying I will do that or someday I'll do that. Like, some days not a day of the week. If it doesn't happen right now, it's probably never going to happen. So do it actually in the group while you're sitting there. Masterminding is, for a lot of people, can mean a lot of different things. Would you recommend anybody who's a business owner be in one and have one for themselves? And how do you end up being a part of one? Do you have to be invited in? How did that process happen for you?
Yeah, ours is an invite only. Certain industries we're taking on, like, a plumber, a company, a person owns a plumbing company wouldn't be a fit for what we do. But to start one, you just got to think of the time. There's time involved. But the power of being a guest on a master or being a member of a mastermind is just massive growth. I tell people this is another tip I give. If you make it 250,000 a year, I just use income as a great marker. If you're talking to people that are not as successful as you, let's use that. You should always be mentoring. When somebody's, just starting out in their business, not making any money, you don't go, hey, Tony, nice talking to you. Come back to me when you made money. That's not a servant's heart. You're going to give, and I do all the time, I do a free podcast workshop, and I do 2 educational business educational workshops twice a month. at no cost for most people, And then that's what I'm doing. That's the mentoring. Now, on the upside, you want to be learning. ABL, always be learning. What a way to learn from Dr. Ivan Meisner when he was on my podcast. I learned about giving. Buzz, who's part of our podcast, a great marketer, taught me some things about marketing. I'm learning from these people because then you start growing up to that level. And then you're a multi-billion millionaire. Now we have billionaires that we do another program with. So those people can work together. And it's amazing how many times they need help. And they're always looking for something.
I love that. And yeah, the people who are usually in that higher echelon are much more open to receiving, to listening, to they're open, right? They know they can't do it all by themselves. And that's where the mastermind comes from. That's where the collaboration comes from. If they want to access those workshops that you're talking about, how do they access those?
Reach out to me on LinkedIn, Steve Ramona, STEVRAMONA, or you can email me, steveR1961@gmail.com, or you can text me at 408-642-6288, and I'll get you some information, get you connected with some of our guys to do a little discovery call, see if you're a fit and see if this is a good thing for you. Because we want it to be a fit. The other thing about Mastermind is a community of really close people that you're going to be working together. You're going to have to like each other. Again, bad apple in the bushel could cause some problems. And we've had those. I mean, there's humans out there. We had people that were just pitching their services, and that won't work in a mastermind. Never pitch to people above you unless they ask.
Right. If you're in a group of people who are all serving one another, don't be in there pitching. That's a good rule of thumb. Be in there serving, and it's going to come back around to you. And going back to the BNI concept, that's come up quite a few times in this conversation, but that is the concept there. It is training people to be a servant first, right? To be servant-minded and to have a servant's heart. And that's the last thing I want to ask you to wrap this thing up. Being a servant, where did that come from for you? And how do you walk that out, not just in your business every day, but in your life on a daily basis?
I learned about 2.5 years ago, right before I started my podcast, I met a gentleman that the year before had done $250 million in income for his company. A lot of money. He says, Steve, I woke up every morning. I went to bed every morning serving. Okay, tell me more about that. He says, when I got to the office, I would say hello to my employees. I'd jump into a meeting, but every meeting I jumped in, every situation, work with people, I thought of how can I bring value? Oh, I'm having, my wife's having, well, take a week off. We'll find somebody to fill, go to find the manager. How are we going to fill the spot? But I'm going to serve him. He's having, you should do it anyways. But he always was looking at value because that's why I made $250 million. I gave value to my competitors. I gave them clients we couldn't work with. They work a different industry. I couldn't work with them, and I served my competitors. He says, that's part of the reason I made $250 million, because I gave, and it was value.
I love that. That's so good. So if they want to find out more about you, servinginbusinesspodcast.com. Anything else you want to leave us before we sign off?
Get better 1% every day. Just a little bit, whatever that looks like for you. And when I serve and bring value, I go here, then I take it up a 2%. I want my value just to be a little bit more, just to be remembered. Same thing with your life. Just get 1% every day, better every day. It's May 28th. We're about 5 months, 6 months. Let's say 6 months. And that's about 150% increase by the end of the year. Think about this. How much better will your business be, and how much better will your life be if you did increase 150%?
Yeah. I love that perspective. That's so good. Awesome. Steve, Ramona, thank you so much for being a part of the Unstuck business today.
Thank you. This is fantastic.